How's everybody doing? Good night, good evening. Our guests tonight are Stu and Heidi Rodewald. They are critically acclaimed musicians and theater performers. Stu and Heidi lead two critically acclaimed bands, the Negro Problem and Stu. And among their many accomplishments is the masterful and epic musical Passing Strange. Passing Strange is a Tony Award-winning musical that emerged first from song fragments and then went on to the Broadway stage. Its final performances were filmed by Spike Lee and turned into having a cinematic release. The protagonist, plainly named Youth, is tempered on stage by the presence of Stu, and all of the actors and the band actually appear together throughout. This interplay actually this interplay highlights one of the musical's primary themes, which is how do we find the real? The protagonist, who begins his journey to find the real in South Central LA, and then moves out from there and goes on to Europe, first to a utopian Amsterdam, and then its counterpart, the dystopian walled Berlin. Passing Strange is funky, it's vulnerable, it's also a towering achievement. It's a work that is incredibly important to me, and I feel like we are all incredibly fortunate to be in dialogue with its creative force. In the beginning of the musical, if you're familiar with it, Stu tells us that whenever we are confused, that we simply ask the song. And I think that we, again, are incredibly fortunate to go one step beyond that tonight and actually talk to the performers. So please give a warm welcome and round of applause for Stu and Heidi Rodewald. Good evening. I see that you're getting comfortable here in this cabaret style with your libations.
Yeah. Not used to sitting like this on a stage. It's like the James Lipton show, right?
Right.
Do you have blue cards?
Yes, and cue cards, homemade. So it's a huge honor to be here with you, and we know that this event is really just kicking off what's going to be an amazing week of performances in cabaret here. Just to open up, I want to play an audio clip that's not music, but it's actually from a public talk at the New York Public Library a few weeks ago. Angela Davis and Toni Morrison had a public conversation where they spoke about a number of different issues and ideas, and during the question and answer portion, someone asked a question about creativity in Hollywood, or the lack thereof. And in a long answer, Toni Morrison, the Nobel laureate, responded, and here is just a clip from her response.
Okay.
I wish it were possible to do more inventive, creative, non-formulaic Hollywood things. It's possible in the movies. Hey, think about Passing Strange. Wasn't that something? I have never seen anything on Broadway that literate and that musically inventive and staged that way. That was really a leap for me. I thought it was fantastic. So it is possible, and I just want to say that
how does it feel being Toni Morrison's ideal or example of creative potential?
Yeah, someone told me that this happened because, I think it happened in New York, right?
Yes, 2 weeks ago.
So, New York is a little village, so you hear about everything 5 seconds after it happens. And I didn't really know what she had said until just right now. And, I'm a guy in a rock band. I'm a songwriter. I don't consider myself to be I'm not a playwright. I don't consider myself a novelist. I don't write poems. I don't write short stories. So I feel like it's actually kind of like a victory for rock and roll more than anything else. That all this screaming that we've been doing for the last 50 or 60 or 70 years on really smelly, beer-soaked stages has somehow trickled down or up or flowed upwards, and someone like her and other people like her can like hear it, you know? I mean, I think we've always in rock music and blues and stuff, a lot of the stuff that we've been screaming about is significant, and I think there's been a lot of poetry and a lot of things you would call rock music or blues. And so, yeah, I'm, you know, insanely, you know, honored. I mean, it's crazy to hear her say that, you know? I mean, it's fantastic. What can I say, you know? I feel like you've done something right, you know?
I've taught Passing Strange twice now, and I like to do an experiment with my students, and I ask them to tell me what genre Passing Strange is, because basically I just want to mess with them and see what they can come up with. And one thing I wanted to think about and ask you is this question of genre, is that something that you thought about during the writing or performing, and was it ever something productive for you to think about?
Did we?
No. I feel like, I mean, my opinion on this all the time is that we completely, the whole time we were making this, and Stu was sitting down and we'd have all these discussions, and then Stu would sit there and be typing stuff up, and we were just concentrating on what we wanted to see, and it was never about, you know, it's just an evolution of the band we've been playing in for a very long time, and we've, you know, and Stu and I, you know, he comes up with something and it's like, oh, I love that, and we don't think about what, you know, what people are going to think or what it is, or, you know, you create stuff, and it was very true to what we do, that it was kind of all over the place. When you listen to our records,
Right.
they are too, so I'm proud of that we stuck to that.
Yeah, I think the big secret about Passing Strange is that actually it is genuinely a work of experimental theater. Now, that doesn't mean it's experimental because it's got no plot or there's like weird sounds. It's experimental because our director had this crazy idea that she wanted to see what a play would look like if she actually let these rock musicians make it. Instead of trying to get in the way, she decided to see what would happen if she could facilitate and just see. So it really was an experiment. Like, put two rock musicians who have never made a play before, never made a musical before, and see what they do. Instead of her going, well, here's what Aristotle said about, you know, drama, and here's what, you know, the 3-act play looks like this, and the 5-act play and the 7-act play looks like this. She just facilitated. And I think a lot of, I wish more directors and I wish more producers would do that with artists, just kind of let them go and see what happens. And that's really what happened. The play is what it is because the three of us just let go. You know, no one was really telling us what to do.
Well, and because it wasn't meant to go as far as it went. And if it was meant to be that, we wouldn't have been handed the money to be doing it, probably, in the first place. You know, I think.
I have a friend who in the last 3 years, I'll just say, I don't want to mention his name, but he won like one of the biggest possible awards. His play is completely celebrated, and he's, you know, doing fantastic. And he told me in the 5-year process, like every play more or less, you know, 5 years to get to Broadway. Ours, we were off Broadway before that, and we were in Berkeley. But, you know, it's about 4 or 5 years. He said they cut anywhere from 80 to 100 songs to get through their 4 or 5 year process. Because, you know, producers and second guessing, and we need a song to make character A go to character B, and we need a song to make this thing happen, and we need these things to happen, and we need the second act to be like this. And you're sort of forcing the music to serve the narrative in a way that we always thought was kind of boring. And I was like, wow, we didn't cut any songs. I mean, unless we didn't like them, you know. But like basically we didn't cut, these are our songs, you know. Just like when you make a record, you go, these are the songs on our record. You don't go, I don't like that song now. It's like we wouldn't write it if we didn't like it. And we wouldn't let it out if we didn't like it. And I think that's a problem with musical theater. The chief problem is that music is in service of the narrative instead of music being the narrative. This is the key problem. Music is a second-class citizen in the American musical. Even the ones that they say are edgy, that we all know really aren't. But that's my opinion, at least.
So as you're performing, as a band, and these are your songs, what is it like being on stage with actors and coexisting with them on that space?
It's lovely. It's like being in a clinic every night. It's like we're opposites. We ultimately, both the actor and the rock musician both started in front of the mirror when they were 9 years old. The difference is the actor is in front of the mirror being someone, trying to be someone else, a character, and the rock musician is in front of the mirror trying to be themselves. But the muscles that actors develop are kind of opposite from the ones that we develop as musicians. So what happened is we started learning from them about how to be precise and how to show up on time, both in the music and to rehearsal. And we started to see how they thought, and how they processed time and words, and it was fascinating to us. And then suddenly we watched them, and they were like starting to kind of be like us, like kind of getting loose with the lines and like trying things out. I saw them do things on stage after, doing the play like 100 times. Just suddenly one of them would just like take off a shirt and like throw it in the other actor's face, and the shirt landed right over the other actor's face, like perfectly, like it was TV, like it was a movie. And I'm like, did you practice that? And she was just like, D'Angelo was like, no, I just knew it was gonna work because we were just in this zone. So the same things we do musically, where we just know something's gonna work, even if we've never done it before, the actors started doing stuff like that too. And so it was really like a reality show where like, you put like we were like mortal enemies, right, in high school, the thespians and the rock stoner kids, right? But then this Passing Strange is really just like a reality show where those two people, mortal enemies, got put on like a desert island and were forced to make work. And I really think that those are the people in high school who should be getting together. It's like we hated the people in drama club, but we shouldn't. We should be making plays with them. The people in drama club should be going over to the stoner rock kids and going, hey, let's make a play,
Has this changed now that you're back on the road performing as a band? Has this changed your stage presence at all?
You're watching.
I'd say no. I think when I joined the Negro Problem in '97, when I saw Stu and the name the Negro Problem, and I saw Stu up there, I was like, oh my God, yeah, this does not surprise me that we did what we did, and I think he's theatrical. There's a lot of rock bands, right? People are just theatrical, and I don't think anything's changed. It's funny, we're on the road right now, and it's like they're the same people. It's not like we've changed into Broadway people or something,
Yeah, I think if anything, it's just comfortable to be back where we kind of really, we were kind of going nuts. And by the time we got to Broadway, we had 2 runs in Berkeley and down in the Public Theater in New York, and I was pretty much kind of going crazy by the time we were on Broadway, because the director, Annie Dorson, she built in room for us to be musicians. So that means some nights a particular song would be 3 minutes long, but then some nights the lighting guy knew that it could be 8 minutes long. And the lighting guy knew that sometimes I might go into the audience and sit in the front row and sing from the front row if there was an empty seat. And the lighting guy knew that sometimes I would just run around constantly. And he was ready for all these things. And so the director built that in, both because she knew that that's what a rock band would do. And secondly, she built it in because she knew that I would lose my mind if I had to do the same thing every night. Because that's another one of those muscles that actors have that we don't really have as musicians. It's hard for us to do the same thing every night, And the actors would tell you, I'm not actually doing the same thing every night. But it looks like it to us. And we're like, no, I need to play this solo 5 minutes tonight. Can I do that while somebody runs around? So I mean, that being back on the stage now is like kind of like being like home. And it's kind of fun to get used to it, back used to it, you know what I mean?